Hi, I'm Chris Kornman. I am co-owner of Entablature Design Build, which is a construction company in New Orleans, Louisiana. We do large historic renovation work primarily. I'm also the broker and co-owner of Entablature Realty, which is a general brokerage real estate agency that has 20 agents. Both of those companies are clients of Business on Purpose. I learned about BOP because I'm part of on the construction side, I'm part of a group called Builder 20, which is 20 builders in non-competing markets that meet twice a year. And that's all managed by the National Association of Home Builders. And one of those members is in Bluffton, South Carolina, where Business on Purpose is. And Scott Beebe was our guest speaker at our meeting in Bluffton. And the second I met Scott, and he spoke to us about sort of the general Business on Purpose framework and what they do for businesses, it was just clear that that's what we needed and that's what we've been looking for. And so we immediately signed up with Business on Purpose, and that's been a few years now. And then once we started to grow the real estate agency, it was sort of a no-brainer that we needed the same service and consulting we were getting on the construction company applied to the real estate agency to help it follow the exact same path and framework. Probably, the best thing about Business on Purpose for us, especially on the construction side, is that construction in general and renovation especially is a highly chaotic business, and the whole idea of what we do is is constantly taming the beast. And for years prior to Business on Purpose, we always felt like we were just operating from a constant reactive state of reaction. Everything we did was very reactive, and we really struggled with how to flip that around and become more proactive. And that's really what drew us to Business on Purpose, was that idea that we should be proactive in everything we're doing and stop acting from that sort of chaotic reactive position. And it's changed literally every single thing that we do. I mean, every process that we have, from the minute by minute, day to day, month, quarterly, annually, all of those things that we do are rooted in that sort of Business on Purpose model of not operating from a chaotic perspective. And while the real estate agency is certainly a lot less chaotic naturally, just that world is less chaotic, it certainly still can be, and we operate very much from the same framework on the real estate side. I'm probably a little out of the ordinary when it comes to my thoughts about coaching, because I am a psychologist in a previous life. I have a PhD in psychology, and so I'm sort of wired to believe in the benefits of consultants and coach. I know consultants and coaches are very different, but I'm primed to believe in the benefits of kind of a third party outside perspective. I think it's very hard for people to be in the middle of their own stuff and their own organizations and see outside of that, see different perspectives, and that's what a coach really helps you do. And also, I think it's naturally very hard it's human nature to let some accountability go by the wayside and not hold yourself accountable. I think people create all kinds of excuses for themselves naturally, and that's what coaches do, is they hold us, Business on Purpose holds us very accountable constantly. And not that, we're allowed to absolve ourselves of our own accountability. We do, but when you have your coach sitting over your shoulder, that, that adds a pretty strong element of accountability. So in my mind, I was always very, my whole life I've been open to it and understand the benefits of it. There's a great podcast that I listen to by Michael Lewis, who lots of people probably know. He's an author, and he wrote The Big Short and Moneyball and a lot of those books that have become famous movies. And he has a podcast called Breaking the Rules, and there's one entire season about coaching. And it's the idea that for decades, the wealthiest, smartest people who have access, they all have coaches, right? Like if you think about LeBron James, he has probably 50 different coaches and trainers and personal chefs and people who just stretch him out and stuff like that. And whereas the people who need him the most, the everyday person running small businesses, they don't necessarily have the resources to have 50 coaches, but they're really, they're the ones who should have it, right? Because they don't have all of the natural ability that maybe someone like LeBron James has. So Michael Lewis really just solidified it for me in that podcast that every business and every person should have someone in their corner, rooting for them, holding them accountable, helping them see the outside perspective, and helping them manage the chaos that is just kind of naturally in their lives. Oh, that's a tough one. Wow, there's so many. I have to, and now they're so ingrained in what we do day to day. I have to think about what's BOP, what came out of BOP. So probably we use a lot of the BOP stuff. I would say the one I like the best is big wins. We're religious about our big wins. We we do big wins at the start of all of our staff meetings in both the real estate side and the construction side. And we do big wins in our meetings with BOP, and we do them in our leadership meetings. I would say that so not just big wins, but the way we structure meetings now. So which meeting, you don't want to a company can't have meetings all the time, right? People just get burned out and then you can't go do the work. So helping us identify what the important meetings are. And so we call it a staff meeting, which is our job review meeting on the construction side, where we review every job weekly. And then we have our ownership meeting because there's more than one owner. And we have a key leader meeting, which I think is pretty typical for most businesses. They may not have that ownership meeting if there's only one owner. And so the structure, what BOP has brought to us is which meetings are important and making sure we have them, nothing gets in the way of those meetings. Those meetings are set in stone. The organization of those meetings, so what the agenda is and what happens in those meetings. And then, of course, the first part is the big win that we start off each of those meetings with. So injecting that into the organization that's had a massive impact because everything sort of flows out of that. Certainly the master process roadmap and the implementation roadmap, all of those things, those create the guardrails for what we do, but the meeting structures, that's the juice of it. And that is that sort of is what our culture flows out of too, because that's when we're all together. And then, I mentioned culture. I would say actually culture, something, if you look at our master process roadmap, culture is at the very, very top. So I would sort of be remiss if I said meetings were more important than culture. They're not. Culture is just sort of over all of it, and BOP has really helped us identify not just that the importance of culture, but that it has to be purposeful. Like culture can't just happen on its own. So we are extremely purposeful in our culture, identifying things that we should be doing on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis to promote our culture, to make sure that it's good. And that's everything from bi-weekly check-ins with our employees to sub and supplier events to touch points with our clients throughout the process of construction and on the real estate side, purchasing their home. Culture, I think, BOP has brought a huge element of purpose and organization to our culture. Like I said, it's had a massive impact on us, and in no small part on, my work-life balance. So a big part of BOP at the very beginning was our delegation roadmap and figuring out, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, what brings me joy, what doesn't bring me joy, and, how to delegate those pieces out. And I was, like any small business, especially in its early years, there were lots of things I was touching that I either shouldn't be touching or that just, weren't enjoyable for me, and helping me understand that and solve that has brought a tremendous amount of balance in that sort of work-life balance. So that was huge. And that's I think always a struggle for an owner of any small business, keeping that on track. But, we're constantly looking back at that delegation roadmap and making sure that it's in line with, especially as we grow. In general, I used to work probably 7 days a week, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day, if not more. Or early on in the company. And, certainly there are lots of, almost every weekend I do a little work still, but it's nothing like it used to be, where the business really just sort of owned me, and was pretty frustrating for my wife and family. And that Business on Purpose has certainly changed that pretty significantly. It certainly is a time and financial investment, and anyone who thinks that they're not going to get a return on their investment in both time back, freedom, and greater revenue is probably someone who, I guess, sort of maybe doesn't fully understand coaching, but also has some defenses up about themselves, meaning that they are not, you have to be willing to, you have to be ready. Again, it's kind of as coming from the world of psychology. If you're not ready for change, you're not going to change. And if you're not ready to commit to coaching, then you're probably not going to stick with it. I mean, you have to be willing to do the work and ready to look at a lot of hard stuff about how you operate. If you're a super micromanager as an owner, that's just not sustainable. And Business on Purpose is going to force you to change that. And if there's something about the way you work and the way you operate, and you're not willing to let go of that, or at the very least look at it pretty in depth and how it's impacting the way you operate your business, then you're sort of setting yourself up to not succeed. But that's on you. That's not about the process of coaching. And I sort of go back to the Michael Lewis, LeBron James thing, that anyone who thinks a coach can't benefit you, there's a reason why every super athlete, every super musician, they all have teams of coaches, because they know that it elevates your game. And the evidence it's just there. It's all over the place. And so you just, the only thing I can say is you sort of have to bite the bullet, and it's difficult. It's not like suddenly magically things change. And, it is a tremendous amount of work, and it takes some hard decisions and hard looking at yourself, but the benefits are just astronomical. And I would say that in a lot of cases, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head for small businesses, but lots of small businesses just don't succeed. I think the overwhelming majority of them don't succeed, and probably my guess is that the number of small businesses that have coaches that succeed is far greater than the number of businesses that don't have coaches.